My guest today has spent the last 3 decades as an award-winning international speaker. Her mission is to empower women to celebrate their too-muchness and play bigger in life through soulful leadership, conscious communication, and epic self-trust. Her Too Much Woman speech hit 50 million views, birthing a book, a movement, and a global tour. In this episode, we spoke about being a too much woman, what that even means, and how important it truly is to identify our core values and ways in which we can do that to live a life more congruent with what our soul truly wants. Enjoy the episode. Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome back to another episode of the Skin I'm In podcast. I'm your host, Chanel, and this is the space where real stories meet radical self-discovery. Here, you'll find peace through clarity, purpose through inspiration, and the permission to be your authentic self through the stories of men and women who've walked the path before us. If this show moves you, hit that like button, share it with someone you care about, or subscribe so you never miss an episode. That small but powerful act helps the show grow and brings in the guest you most want to hear from. In return, my promise to you is that I'll keep showing up with the raw, the real, and the conversations that crack us wide open, reminding us we're not alone. So, let's dive in and find the light in the shadows together. Gina, welcome to the Skin I'm In podcast. I am so excited to have this conversation with you today.
Hello. I am over the moon. Thank you for having me.
We have so many things to dive into, and one of them, well, let's start with how you got here. So you had a moment where you were invited to a competition. Was that right? A speaking competition? And you gave a speech about being too much as a woman. That went viral, over 50 million views. What do you think tapped in collectively that really resonated with so many people on such a massive scale?
Yeah, let's jump right into that. I have to backstep for 1 second to say that I really didn't think anyone would get it. At that point, I had worked with women for over 25 years in the empowerment space. And the repetitious message that I always got was, I'm not enough. I don't feel like I'm enough. I'm not ready. I'm not enough. And so I thought my message of too muchness wouldn't land. But I just felt so compelled because when I reviewed my life, and I was doing a lot of life reviews in my early 40s. So for anyone who's coming up to that time or is in that time, watch out, because midlife is a time of life reviews.
Amen,
as I was as I was reviewing that time, I was reflecting on how much I've been told I was too much. I was told I was too sensitive as a child, for sure, too emotional, too dramatic, too loud, too ambitious, too bold, too mouthy, too smart for my own good. I had too many dreams. I was too voluptuous, tuck it away, put that somewhere. It was just ongoing. And so I really didn't think people would resonate. And so the speaking competition, I thought, was an opportunity for once in my life as a speaker to actually just tell a personal story to some, 30 people in a dingy little bar. It turned out not to be the case. And when I told that story, which was really the truth about me, what I didn't know at the moment, and actually it didn't hit me until at least a year later when I went out on tour, was that too much and not enough are opposite sides of the same coin. So the messaging of too much and the messaging of not enough is actually just different language that points to the same thing. And the thing that it points to is that no matter what you do, you are wrong. You need to fit into, especially as women, into these very predictable boxes of behavior and expectation and even desire. And you better fit here so that you are predictable and you are contained and we can control you. And don't scribble outside of that box. And so that's what I learned really from the speech and the resonance. And by the way, there are a lot of people who have reached out to me, even, people who identify as men. I've had people who identify along the sexual spectrum, people who have reached out who I wouldn't myself call too much, who have said, that's my story too. And so I also learned a lesson that we don't really know someone's lived experience, and someone can be very tucked in and contained throughout their life, but there's a too much woman in there somewhere that wants to come out. So I'm hoping in this interview, we pull her out a little bit.
Yeah, like so much of that resonates, because I was also the too emotional, too dramatic, too loud, too voluptuous kid in school. And I learned very quickly that I couldn't be safe in my own body. And one of the things that you talk about in that speech is that moment where you suited up, covered it all up, and put on some glasses, and a man asked to walk you to your car or walk you out, and then grabs you and tells you he's got a fetish for the librarian types. And I'm thinking, so no matter what you did, there you were trying to cover yourself up fully suited in a room full of men in suits, and it still was too much. And so how do you feel safe?
We understand that there's a game to play, somewhere along the line. For some of us, it's at 5, as young as 5. For some of us, it's as teenagers. Some of us, when we embark in the workplace, we come to understand that there's a game to be played. There's a set of rules to follow. And in order for us to be successful, be accepted, be loved, be chosen, be liked, we need to follow these rules. And the rules are, in a man's world, to posture as a man, but also know your place as a woman. So, if we are, at a business meeting, we need to posture as a man, but also know our place as a woman. And there's this really skinny tightrope that we have to walk. And so what I thought was, here I was, a young woman in a very predominantly male industry, which is the speaking industry, where the average male is 50 to 60 years old. And he doesn't look like me. He doesn't talk like me. He doesn't have boobs like me. He doesn't have hair like me. How am I going to make it in this world? And so I call it manning up. I used to wear a minimizing bra. I would, dress in these suits that would button up to the top. I would slick my hair back into a severe bun. I used to wear fake glasses, so that I looked the type. I looked like someone who would belong. And it worked for a while. Here's the problem. And anyone listening to this knows it works for a while, right? When we kind of act like the cool kids, when we kind of try to be the yes, pick me girl, like it works for a while. We get affirmation, we get accepted, we get teased with a little bit of something. But then we realize that we're never being liked, respected, or accepted for who we actually are. And at some point that slams into us that we are still seen as less than. And when a woman confronts that truth, the game changes, because she really comes up to a crossroads. And the crossroads is, am I going to play along and try to get what I can in this man's world? Or am I going to take a brave new path? And that's what I hope we're going to talk about today, that brave new path.
Well, let's dive right into it. So talk to me about your brave new path. What was the path that you walked on after going viral? That would have been exhilarating, overwhelming, and like Jay Shetty, you said, shared it. So it's gotten into, really key hands. So how did you shift? What shifted with you in your life, personally, professionally, after that happened?
Well, the interesting thing is, at that point when it happened, I had already been a global speaker for 25 years. But here's the thing, I was still masquerading in a pretend life. And the pretend life was that I was, happily married, that I was being fully myself. I was still tucking away my too-muchness. I certainly didn't have red hair. I didn't have a nose ring. I wasn't, dressing the way that I would dress. I was very cautious about how I presented to the world. I was containing myself. I was trying to play by the rules. And so what happened is, in this little speech where I dared to show up fully as myself, please know that I had no idea that 50 million people would watch this video. Had I known, I probably wouldn't have told that story. It would have taken tremendous audacity and courage to tell that story. So what happened on the other side of the virility is I got lots of attention. I got lots of great opportunities. It was a dream for a speaker. I got a book deal. I was on stages with my heroes and sheroes, the women that I read their books and listened to their podcasts. And I traveled around the world on tour. All sounds so wonderful and glamorous. But here's what happened. And I wonder if your listeners can relate to this, is things go really, really well. And sometimes you actually get the thing that you ask for. And then at the top of the mountain, you go, what the, like, I don't know if I can swear, like, what is, this is not what I thought. So there I was at the top of the mountain with everything lined up, all my ducks lined up. And I was not happy. There was something very off. And I noticed that when I was on tour, I was nervous and agitated and frustrated because I really wanted to speak honestly. And so what I learned is that we all play this game and we fool ourselves. And the big turning point for me was the pandemic. So 2 years into this tour, I'm touring around the world and talking to different women, and they're educating me. I'm not educating them. They're telling me all about themselves and their too-muchness. And then the pandemic hits. And when the pandemic hits, I'm on the European leg of the tour, and I have to come back home, and we have to cancel a year's worth of shows and refund tickets. I'm going through a personal divorce. I'm going through menopause very, very early, which I had no idea. I just knew there were all these physical symptoms. I went through a deep depression. I thought it was, all of these things. But what happened was everything crumbled. And when everything crumbles and you are humbled and you find yourself wrapped around the toilet bowl with like having your come to Jesus moment, that is where we come into integrity with ourselves. And for me, integrity is just looking the truth in the face and saying, this is what it is. And so that was the turning point for me, is realizing that I had outwardly all the things that I could possibly have dreamed of. It didn't scratch the itch. It didn't fulfill the thing. And so when everything came crumbling down, all that was left was me with myself and my truth. And that's really where the work began for me and where the change began for me, because I had to really work on my self-trust. And that's what we're going to talk about today, how crucial that is.
I don't know if you can say, but I'm like trying to fight back tears, because I was just, when you explain the moment of, hugging the bowl and having that humble moment, I was just like, that was my miscarriage last year. I was like, I don't trust myself. And I thought I was bleeding to death, and I was in the hospital. I couldn't stand, and I was there all day. Nothing they gave me was helping. But even in the week before, because I already knew before the miscarriage started, I tell this story because I feel like every woman needs to ask these questions when they're in their deepest, darkest. And what is this here to teach me is what I always ask myself. And I was on my yoga mat sobbing, knowing I'm about to miscarry. And I was rocking back and forth. And I was just like, what is this here to teach me? What is this here to teach me? And I heard, we just want to know how badly you want it. And then I miscarried like a day and a half later. And because I got the chance to grieve, because I heard that messaging from my spirit guides, I was just like, I'm ready for this, but nothing prepares you for the humbling. Nothing, no matter what it is, no matter what kind of humbling you get. Mine was my miscarriage. Everyone has their own version of humbling. But it really caused me to question and just look at myself and be like, I don't trust myself. And I have everything that I thought I wanted in my life. And why do I still feel this way? And I mean, you're asking that question in like the peak, the thing that women dream of. And it still felt like there was a bit of a void. So how did you start to learn to trust yourself, Gina?
Well, first of all, I want to acknowledge your grief and your loss, because I for some of us, they are big grievances and big losses. And for some of us, it's lots of little ones, lots of little heartbreaks. And, I just want to acknowledge, for anyone who's listening, not all of us have the come to Jesus moment and the voice booming with the spirit guides answering. Mine didn't answer. And I believe that mine didn't answer because I hadn't shown that I would listen. And that's a really big part of self-trust is, we are groomed from a very young age not to trust ourselves. Mother knows best, father knows best. Stop crying. It's not that bad. What are you so upset about? Especially if you've been told you're too much or too sensitive or too emotional or too dramatic. Like stop it, pull yourself together, go to your room until you feel better. All of these ways that we are told to not trust our feelings. That's how it begins. And then over time, we don't trust our intuition, right? We don't trust our knowing. We don't trust ourselves when the doctor tells us nothing's wrong, or that it's all in our heads. We don't trust ourselves, and we preference what the teacher says. It's like it just goes on and on and on. And then media tells us not to trust ourselves and not to trust one another as women. And so we can see that this is deeply rooted. But here's the really good news about self-trust. Self-trust is a muscle. And what's incredible about muscles is they have muscle memory. And so even if your self-trust muscle has been in a sling for a decade or 2 or 4, the great thing is if you take it to the self-trust gym and you start to lift some 5-pound weights, which we'll talk about, the muscle memory comes back quickly. The body remembers and it wants to trust you. And so I just want to give a little hope to all the people who are like, yes, I have not been honest with myself. I've not been honest in this relationship. I've not been honest when it comes to my health. I've not been honest with my weight. I've not been honest with my parents. I've not been, with my sexuality. I've not been, it's just, and so for me, the beginning of self-trust is integrity. And what I mean by that is getting really honest with you about what is true for you. And this is a hard thing to do at first because we're so out of practice. But here's the thing, in my early 40s, what I learned is that I was living according to a set of values that I had inherited from my family, from my culture, from my society, from my generation, that told me that this would make you happy. As a woman, get married young, find the one, have the 2 kids, look a certain way. And I was living by a certain set of rules and core values. And it wasn't until my 40s when I had my rock bottom experience that I said, wait, what do I actually value? Because, I was raised in a Greek family, and culturally, the family is very much about family, prioritizing loyalty to the family, being a good girl, servitude and martyrdom. It's all about safety and security. You make safe, secure choices. You don't go out and move out of your home until you get married. You don't go travel the world. You do none of that. You pay off your mortgage, and you speak softly, and you cook for people. And listen, I value a lot of those things. This is not to discount, any of those values, but there's something that I valued more that I never allowed myself to see. This is the truth part. What I valued for myself was freedom, which I didn't have in my life at the time as a mother and as a wife. What I valued was courage, doing wild and outrageous things that made me excited about life, that dared me to live on the edge. When I have a core values exercise that I bring women through, and it really helps us to get clarity on what our North Star is. Because here's the thing, you cannot live by 50 different values. You can only live by a couple. And when you know what those are, everything starts to shapeshift. You get clarity. The fog starts to disperse. And you get very, very sharp and clear about what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and why. Because it calls you forth. And so once I understood what really called me forth, then I could start to overlay the practices of self-trust and start to live in alignment with that.
What did you realize some of your values were in that?
Yeah, so definitely, freedom was a big one. So for me, as a child, I dreamt of going to New York City, where my mother was from. I was born and raised in Toronto, Canada, but my mom was from New York City, and I always dreamt of moving there and living there. I was in performing arts as a child. And when push came to shove and the time came in my teens and I was gearing up and ready to go, that was not an option in my home. That's not what good family girls do. They stay home and they're loyal and they have families. And that's, certainly my mother was progressive enough to want me to have a career, but certainly you're not going to leave the family and go by yourself to New York City. So having a sense of freedom to do what I wanted to do and not to do what the family thought was the right thing to do. That was a big thing for me. Right now, I live freedom as one of my top core values. And for me, that's time freedom. I have soft mornings, so I don't do any kind of work. I've structured my day, so I don't do any kind of work or take any kind of calls before 10 a.m. I do work later in the day, but for me, I like to get up. I take my time, I go slow, I make my coffee, I move my body, I go for a walk, I might read a little bit, I might dance a little bit. For me, that is freedom. It's freedom to structure my day. It's freedom to do the work that I want to do. It's time freedom. It's time to, like, freedom to explore myself. So freedom is a big thing for me. And I didn't know that. One of the ways that your viewers can start to get clear on their core values, and this is such important work to be doing, in your 30s and 40s, especially because you start to get to know yourself. And there's many, many processes to do it. I've refined mine down to a science, but start to ask yourself, when in my life was I most proud of myself? What did I do? What did I say? What chance did I take? Like, when was I most proud of myself? And what core value does that relate to? So when I thought about myself, I was most proud of myself when I was free to do things that I wanted to do. Sitting at a desk working 9 to 5 was the opposite of that. I knew that I needed to have an entrepreneurial life. Another big core value of mine was courage. So I really am down on myself. I tend to be very depressed and very sad and anxious when I'm not doing things that make my heart palpitate. And I don't mean like jumping off buildings or bungee jumping, but like courageous as in speaking up, taking chances, creating art. For me, that's courageous living. And so I had to start looking at where in my life am I showing up courageously? Where in my life am I demonstrating freedom? So this is a really good place to start for anyone who's listening, is start to question your core values and see if you can get some answers around what's important to you.
I love that you brought that up, because I think that people think that the most courageous thing to do is something that's outside of themselves, and yet the most courageous thing to do is to be yourself. Most people are too afraid to be themselves in most situations, whether it's work, relationships, in their families. I've got an Armenian Lebanese background, so I very much understand what you grew up in. But I was just like, stuff it. I'm moving overseas at 21. Bye. So I rebelled, and then lived with the guilt of that for the rest of my life. And so,
That's right.
And that's the other thing that I find that a lot of women struggle with. So we're often told we're too much. Then we feel like we're not enough because we're not, whatever we're too much of, that means that we're not enough of something else. And then we feel guilty that we're not that, or this, or look like this, or sound like that, or do that for a job, or have that as a husband. I don't have kids yet. I'm not married yet. I don't have the house. Like, it's just endless guilt that we deal with. So how have you dealt with that in your life? Did you ever feel that guilt when you did eventually break away from the family expectations?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually guilt is the mechanism. Guilt is the tether to keep us in line. I mean, it's smart. I rarely hear men say that they feel guilty. And if you have any men listeners, I'd love them to, chime in or comment, because guilt is a mechanism of control for women. And the reason it's a mechanism of control is because if you're taught that a good woman is a mother, a good woman is a helpful wife, a good woman is a martyr who takes care of everyone, a good woman is looking at other people and putting their preferences and needs above her own. If we're taught from childhood, when we give little girls babies, and say, take care of this thing. This is your baby to take care of, right? From very young, if we instill in them the core values of other, then when they grow up and they make choices for themselves, guilt is really feeling like you're out of integrity. So the way that I dealt with guilt is by, number one, getting clear on my core values. Because when I recognize that what I was told is the most important thing is actually not the most important thing to me. Yes, do I care about, yes, I mean, I have children, of course I care about other people, but what I know for sure is that I am a better lover, a better woman, a better wife, a better girlfriend, a better mother, a better friend, a better speaker, a better mentor, a better coach when I fill up my cup and serve from the overflow. I know that to be true because I lived the other way. And so I have to recognize guilt when it shows up, because guilt is telling me that I'm off my path. I'm paying attention to other voices, not my own. And then I also have to recognize that when I actually line up with what's true for me, I show up better for people. So the guilt dissipates. I know that I'm better when I take care of self. And so how can I feel guilty about that? Because I know it serves the world. And the world just might be my dog, but it serves everyone when I take care of me.
As far as I'm concerned, if your dog is the only one that's proud of you, you are winning in life. And I love that. I love that because it's so true. When you do feel guilty, it's because you're doing something that isn't in line with something that someone else wants from you. I had never thought of it that way. I just had such a light bulb moment. I'm like, I'm going to rid my life of all this guilt now.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Oh my God. I want to touch on something that you talk about, which is conscious communication. What does that look like in this day and age, and how can we as women take that on, and how would that help us play bigger roles in our own lives?
That's such a juicy question. So conscious communication is really being intentional about what we say and how we say it. So if we agree that we are here to speak truth, and I know that's such a evasive term, but what it means for me is, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is what fills me up, this is what excites me, this is what I want to share, these are my desires. That's what it means when I say speak your truth. Like actually being honest with ourselves and then sharing with other people. Like I want to write a book. I want to write poetry. I want to put out music into the world. I want to, do makeup on TikTok, like whatever that truth is. When we get clarity for ourselves, then it's up to us to be better communicators about that. So, what we've done for most of our lives is we've not only lied to ourselves, but we've lied to other people about what we want. And we're disingenuous. We say things like, it doesn't really matter to me, or I don't really care, or it's not that important. And so conscious communication is about speaking with intention in the spaces that matter, speaking up, telling the truth about how we feel and what we want. So I'll give you an example. I work with a lot of corporate women or women who are in big spaces and big meetings. And oftentimes women who speak loudly, and I don't just mean like volume, I mean like speak up at the meeting, women who have an opinion, women who disagree or contradict with what's been said, women who have unique ideas, women who want to take the lead. They get a lot of criticism. In fact, women get criticized 3 times as much as men in those spaces. They're called demanding, controlling, bitchy, loud, like all of these things. And so conscious communication is not about being quiet. It's not about finding our space. It's not even about building other tables. It's about, with intention, speaking up in those spaces and making sure that your voice is heard. So that's what we're really talking about. How do we do those things?
I've worked with many executives over the years, Gina, and my preference has always been to work for men because they are easier. right now I work for an incredible female leader. I've never come across a woman like this in my whole life, but my experience in the past has been that in order for you to succeed as a woman in these spaces, you must shed every feminine essence you have, put it in the bin, throw it down the toilet, flush that toilet, and then just exist as this really masculine, non-emotional person who's somehow still only needs to speak when they're spoken to. But in those spaces, a lot of women are isolated. If you climb up that far up the ladder as a woman, you become isolated. And so how do we bring that back in and utilize our femininity, the things that actually really make us powerful, to continue to be leaders of corporate organizations?
It's such a good question. So remember at the beginning we were talking about how I manned up in order to fit into these spaces, right? And so I really thought, oh, to get along, I got to go along, and I have to like mimic or mirror those qualities, not just physically, but in how I spoke. And so, and again, it works for a while. So when you say, you know, I've worked for a lot of women in leadership, and, you know, they tend to be quite bitchy and bossy, you know, what we're seeing are women who are playing the game. I mean, consciously or unconsciously, they're playing the game. You know, they're smart women with ideas. They're women who want to contribute in some way. They're women, at least at some point, who had a sense of ambition, audacity, had a voice and spoke up. And they've recognized, you know, they've contorted themselves and recognized that these are the rules. And in order to play by the rules, this is how it needs to be. And so it's very isolating. I want to just pin and underscore what you said, having worked with so many of those women. A lot of those women get to the age of about 50-ish or their menopausal years, and they have breakdowns. These women tap out because physically they're going through menopause. They can't complain. You know, menopause, we haven't talked about that, but it brings on a whole, I don't even know, a whole range of, you know, physical issues where your brain feels jumbled and, you know, hot flashes, you can't focus, you're tired, your bones ache, like everything. And so that seeps in. And because women can't talk about that at that level, because men don't experience that, we have women who just keep pushing, keep burning out. They're more miserable. They're not talking about it. Nobody's talking about it. And they have no support. And so, yes, everyone, you know, I'll go into organizations and they'll be like, Shirley's a bitch. Nobody wants to work for her. And then I go and talk to Shirley, and what I realize is she has really followed this arc that we're talking about. You know, someone who started off genuine, wanted to, you know, so I think it's really important that we look at these cases and we understand what's really going on. These aren't bitchy women. These are women trying to survive in a man's world. And so your questions about how do we bring back, and it's not just the feminine, but how do we bring back the qualities? Because I think both men and women need them. The qualities of the feminine, which is our intuition, which is understanding emotional intelligence, which is empathy, which is compassion, curiosity, good communication skills, like all of these. How do we bring them back? Well, the first thing we have to notice that they're missing. We have to notice that they're missing and they're necessary. And then the second thing we have to do is we have to have conversations with one another. You know, we are living, most women, we will talk to each other about everything except the really hard things. We won't talk to each other about the fact that we don't want to be in this marriage. We won't talk about the money that we're not making. You know, we won't talk about the fact that we're completely burned out and we don't think we can handle this anymore, and that we're depressed and we want to tap out of our jobs. And so we have to have these difficult conversations. That's where it begins, because shame can only exist in dark places. And we go through this shame spiral knowing that we can't hold up the facade anymore. So it begins with that honesty. It begins with that level of integrity. And just like we said at the beginning, you know, for me, integrity was like wrapping myself around the toilet bowl and getting really honest with myself. At this level, integrity is getting ourselves in community with other women and getting radically honest about how hard it is, how miserable we are, and the challenges that we all face. So it has to start with honesty and integrity. That's the beginning space.
Yeah, that's so real, because I think to myself, when I did even go through my miscarriage, I didn't know anyone in my life that had miscarried until I started talking about it. And they're like, yeah, me too. I was just like, how are we not talking about this every day, the absolute number of women that are miscarrying, or the ones that are feeling like they've dedicated their whole lives to their career and they missed out on having the family that they wanted, and they lost the relationship that they knew that they should have invested in, but they put their career first, or the other way around. The amount of times that we don't admit, I really messed up because I thought this is what I valued, and now I'm here and I realize this is not what I want for myself. Or even, I don't know if this has been your experience, Gina, but I grew up in an environment where I didn't trust women. So I couldn't go and ask the friends that I had, or confide in them about these things, or even asking other women for help. The women in my life were not willing to help. So I find that anytime I reach out to a female and I'm like, oh, what's the platform that you're using for this? And what's that thing that you're using for that? They're not willing to help me. I'm like, what is that? Why are we in competition with each other? I'm not here to be better than you. I'm here to share your work. Like, that's what I care about. Women's voices. Let's talk about all the things, all the really yucky stuff. And I would love to see a day where men in the room having a conversation about perimenopause doesn't feel so icky. Let's all get comfortable with perimenopause and the things that come with it. Because even I went to an event, it was a beautiful event, a room full of women, and they were talking about how they had to decide whether to take a promotion because they knew that they were in perimenopause. And they thought that they couldn't handle both menopause and the promotion. And so here we are, women saying no to opportunities because perimenopause and menopause does horrible things to our psyche and our body.
Children. Sometimes you have to decide between having children and taking a promotion, right? So, we have very vastly different experiences. One thing you said that I just think maybe it's so obvious, but I have to underscore it, is that the competition that we see among women is taught, right? It's taught. And so, we're taught this scarcity mentality, prettiest girl, the boys won't like it. Don't act too smart. They don't like a smart girl. Like, this is something that, again, is trained into us. It's not natural. When we see children together, they're cooperative and they're helpful. And so what happens is this is a divisive ploy, because when we band together, when we truly do communicate, and when we do truly share, and when we do truly support each other, we are unstoppable. And so this is a tool of the patriarchy. And so it's really important that we stop ourselves, because so many of us have stories of the wounded, the mother wound, right? Which is, other women that cannot be trusted. And so it's important that we take ownership and do that work at some point in our lives and start to ask ourselves, where did I learn this behavior? And how can I start to repair it? How can I start to get into community with other women or another woman and start to really repair that story? Because it serves nobody. There is no competition. We are so much better when we can share our gifts together. It's natural for us to do that in the feminine. And so I think that's a really important point that you raised.
I mean, there is no sisterhood. I've noticed that there is a significant rise in this whole brotherhood conversation. And yet, while there are all these female woman tribe things, I feel like the sisterhood is not actually enmeshed the way that we have been in generations past, where communities of women would raise the children, take care of the families, and do all the things. And while it may not be that it serves us so much now, I think that we're really missing a key piece of that, of let's come together and make magic happen. Like, we're capable of that. So why would you stop yourself or dim your own light or the light of another woman just because you can't handle that? Like, that makes no sense to me. So yeah, it's when I came across your Instagram, I'm like, yes, too much woman. I am too much woman. We're all too much women. Like, let's celebrate whatever it is that we're too much of, because that's what makes us unique. Like, that is our own story. Why not write it?
Yeah. And again, it's such an unconscious bias that we have. We see so much evidence in society. I mean, I don't know about where you live, but where I live, there are magazines that compare who wore it better. So they'll have like two famous actresses and they're both wearing the same dress, and we're comparing Thor better. Or, like, it's so ingrained in us to do this comparison game. And when we're comparing from a place of scarcity, and the idea is that only one of us can win, only one of us can get the guy, only one of us can get the fruit, only one of us can have the success, then we're not going to trust one another. But that's a lie. It's a bold-faced lie, and it keeps us separate, and it keeps us small, and it keeps us in fear, and it keeps us in shame. And so I think what we're really experiencing right now as a response to this whole bro code and, all of this pushback that we see, particularly in the United States, what we're seeing is it's forcing women, it's forcing the hand of women to start to band together, to start to share stories, to start to get back into community, to start to talk to each other about our experiences. I mean, I didn't know that there was a choice when I was a young woman to be married or not. Like there was a choice, and I don't know that I would have chosen any differently, but it was just the assumption. This is just what you do. It's what you do. Disney told us, the rom-coms told us, this is what you do. You center your life around finding the one, and when you find the one, you make more little ones, and this is the life of a woman. It's not the messaging that men get. And so if that is the center of our life, and that's all that we care about, then it starts to erode the wholeness of who we are. And we have to really question those things. And I think times are changing. I see it. I see it in my communities. I see it in my Too Much Woman movement. I see the tides turning, but there's a lot of unlearning that we have to do, and we have to take responsibility for it. It's a big call, but we're up for it.
Hey folks, quick gut check. Are you actually nourishing your insides or just surviving on lattes and get through the week vibes? I'm here to tell you it doesn't have to be that way. There is a way to boost your energy, cleanse your system, and kick that bloat to the curb. Enter Supercharged Food, a proud supporter of this show and a beautiful heart-led business founded by a clinical nutritionist who believes that real healing starts in the gut. They offer powerful nutritionist-developed supplements like Fulvicumic drops, collagen-boosting bundles, and their best-selling Love Your Gut Synbiotic, packed with prebiotics, probiotics, and digestive enzymes your microbiome will love. Plus, their books and recipes will change the way you look at health from the inside out. Hit the link in the show notes and use the code TheSkinI'mIn to get 10% off every order. Alrighty, let's get back to the show. Do you think that if we were taught as young girls in conjunction with, let's find the right person, under the context of they're the right person, not just to get married and have children, and at the same time taught to find the things that make us happy, find the things that bring us joy, identify the things that really we value in our lives, we would probably have made better decisions with who we chose in our 20s and 30s. Because I think that was the part that was missing in my childhood. The focus was on find the good-looking, rich husband and don't work for the rest of your life and be pretty and don't say very much. But I was never taught the right things to look for.
Yeah, it assumes that the whole point is to be chosen. And if for a woman, the point is to be chosen, then anyone who is competition is the bad guy, the bad woman in this case, right? So there's a supposition, there's an assumption that is the be all and end all. Look at any single person, and the question is, why are you single? What's wrong with you, right? Yeah. Look at any married person, no matter how miserable she is, and they're like, oh well, there's a hierarchy, right? And the tables are turning, as we know, because what we're learning now is that by 2050, over 60% of women are going to be single and childless. These are North American stats, but it's interesting because women are saying, oh, do I have a choice now? I didn't know that I had a choice, because some women want to explore the fullness of their lives. And for some of them, that does mean marriage and children. And for some of them, that doesn't. And for some of them, it's I don't know, but I do know that I love to create art, or I do know that I love to sing, or I do know that I love the law and I want to study it, or I do know that I want to teach. And if anything happens along the way, that's wonderful. But we have centered relationships and being chosen as the epitome of womanhood. Any religion will confirm that is the central arc of a woman's life, is to be chosen. And so I don't even think we need to tell young women, find the things you love and find a person, because there's enough messaging from society that's going to tell us that we need to be chosen. I think what's most important is that we invite women to explore their desire, explore their creativity, explore themselves, get curious about them instead of hyper focusing on curiosity about another. I don't think young girls are asked that enough. Like, what are you excited about? Like, what lights you up? What do you enjoy? That's very different messaging, right? And then handing a girl a baby doll and saying, this is who you are.
Yeah, push the pram like mummy does. So, yeah.
Right.
That brings me to a post that you had put up, because we were talking about young women and being chosen, and you had put up a post of a man who was clearly much older, telling a young girl that he loves younger women. And this really made me feel so much ick, because it reminded me of when I was 17, 18, 19, and I would have much older men interested in me, and I thought it was cool. I thought it meant that I must be really sexy. And I feel sick saying that. So you've got a 17-year-old daughter, that's right?
19.
19. Okay, 19. And this really, hit home for you as well. So I want to talk about what in the world is going on, where we are still at a place that young girls, I mean, she looked like she felt ick in that moment as well. But there are still very much young girls who are being objectified and objectifying themselves for attention and to be chosen. Like, let's be honest, that's what it all is, to be chosen, to make money on places like, I don't even know what it's called, OnlyFans. It's that idea of being chosen. What do you think that is?
It's woman's only currency in a man's eyes, period. A woman is there to be sexually objectified and to bear children. This is the heart of so many of the systems, but it's the heart. And the reason I know it's the heart is not only because, like you and like most women listening, 1 in 3 will have some experience of some trespassing of boundary in their lifetime, some form of sexual assault in their lifetime. And 1 in 3 is what's reported. And so we suspect that it's more like half, every single woman. But the interesting thing on the other side of that is what happens when you are a woman of a certain age. I just turned 50 a month ago. And what I haven't yet quite experienced, because I'm on the cusp, but I have a lot of friends, colleagues, and clients who are approaching 60, is the midlife invisibility syndrome. And what that is the further away we get from our fertile youth, the less valuable we are seen in society. So the further away we are from that place, the more invisible we become. And so, half of the threats that I get on my social media is, you're going to grow old, alone, single with cats. And I'm thinking, that sounds pretty peachy, to be honest. I don't mind.
Sounds peaceful.
I didn't have to clean up after anybody, so it sounds wonderful to me. But that's the ultimate threat, is that you're going to die alone with cats. And what we know to be true, according to the statistics, is that the happiest demographic of women are young, single, childless women who grow into midlife single, childless women. That's the happiest demographic. The second happiest demographic are married men, because married men benefit from marriage by every single marker. So they tend to make more money, they succeed more in their jobs, their emotional health is better because the woman takes care of all the emotional labor in the relationship. Their physical health is better because she's taking care of him, cooking for him, encourages him to go for walks or to hit the gym or to go see the doctor. His mortality is extended. So he lives longer if he's married. Now, all of those markers that I just mentioned, financial, emotional health, physical health, mortality, all of those decrease for a woman who's married. Just let that sink in for a moment. So this isn't a rant against marriage or having children or anything like that. But what it's to, the underscoring important point is to understand that we need to know that as women, our value is not in reproducing. Our value is not in serving men. Our value is not in being chosen. This is the lie. This is the big lie. And so I can imagine the mental load of a woman who either has never been married, who isn't in a relationship, who either can't or hasn't had children. I mean, we can understand the mental anguish because that judgment of unworthiness sits heavy on her heart. And it's a lie. It's a lie. We are all more than that. So I think that's a really important, honest conversation for us to be having.
Do you want to age backwards, get better sleep, improve your memory, boost your immune function, and improve your circulation? Then the healing properties of red light therapy is your answer. When I noticed my skin, energy, and mood lacking luster, I spent countless hours researching the best solutions that would help me get my health back on track, and that's when I found EMR Tech. This science-backed, non-invasive treatment uses red and near-infrared light to activate your body's natural healing processes, supporting your body in boosting circulation, reducing inflammation, and assisting in the production of collagen. The results? Wow! Smoother skin, better sleep, less pain in the joints, more energy, and a serious glow up from the inside out. It's a powerful year-round solution that helps reset the negative effects of spending too much time indoors, on screens, and not getting enough sleep. I'm obsessed with my Firewave Pro panel, and it has become my go-to for deep cellular level healing. I just pop it on for 20 minutes every night before bed to wind down, reset, and recharge. It has made a world of difference to the quality of sleep I get each night and how my face shows up in the morning. To get yourself a glow up, head on over to www.emr-tech, that's tek.com/theskinI'min and use code theskinI'min for 30% off every order. I've popped the link and code in the show notes to make your life that little bit easier. Alrighty, let's get back to the show, folks. It really is, and it makes me wonder why it's been sold to us so much as young girls that that's what we should aspire to. And again, like you, I mean, I've been married, I've been engaged before. I never thought of marriage as any kind of prison. But the more women that I speak to who get to around their 40s and realize, oh my God, I have no idea who I am. I have spent my whole life serving my husband, my family, my children. I don't know that I'm even happy anymore. What am I going to do with my life? And a lot of the times what they do is that they leave their marriage. And I see so often people going on and on and on about how 80% of women are leaving their husbands. And I'm like, well, there's a reason. Something's going on that we are no longer wishing to be a part of. And so that's the conversation that, and it's in this, I think so much of it is in this, where you've outlined that women are not the ones benefiting from marriage.
Yeah, there's an old model that hasn't been upgraded. And the old model is that, the man brings home the bacon, and then the woman manages really everything else. And because more women now are either choosing to work or having to work, and then having children and still doing 90% of the domestic labor.
Yeah.
And we have to understand the invisible workload, which is the emotional labor. And I want to really emphasize this because nobody talked to me about this. Emotional labor is, imagine a woman married with children. She's thinking about whose birthday is next week. Got to get a gift for the mother-in-law. My husband's having a hard day. What can I do? Kids are upset. The dog needs to be taken to the vet. The dog has passed away. Is everybody okay? I mean, she's constantly thinking about the party for little Jimmy, the birthday party she has to, this is the emotional labor, the doctor's appointment she has to make, the dentist appointment, that it's just endless. And so it takes a toll on, we get pushed to the bottom of the list. We have to. These are things that it's invisible. And then we're also thinking, am I looking beautiful? Am I sexually available to my spouse? Is he going to look elsewhere? I mean, it doesn't end. And so These are the things that nobody has ever talked about, certainly not my mother, not my grandmother, or any generation before that. So now that we are having more robust conversations, and now that women aren't having to be married in order to own property, or, they're making different choices. Now we're saying, you know what, if we're going to get married, we wanted to add value to our lives. We're asking for you to bring home more than the bacon. We'd like someone to support you, not just with the domestic labor, not just with the child rearing, but, be, I call it being mountain to mountain, having someone to take some of the mental load, take some of the pressure off and add value. And I think the older that we get, we realize that we do these things unconsciously because we are sold the good girl narrative. And we want to be good people, and we want to care, and we want to be loved, and we want to be seen as good people. And at the end of the day, all that really does is it teaches the next generation that is the expectation. That's the role to fill. I'll tell you one quick story. About 3 or 4 years ago, I went to the funeral of my friend's grandmother, and my friend is at the front giving the eulogy. And she told this story, and she said, I remember grandma so fondly. She said every single Sunday, we'd all go to grandma's house, all of the siblings and all of the grandchildren, and there'd be like 25 of us sitting around this big table eating Sunday dinner. And she would just food after food, plate after plate, the pasta to the salads to the meats to the potatoes, the dessert would come out. And she says, my grandmother's chair was always empty. It was perpetually empty because my grandmother never sat down. I don't remember my grandmother eating her Sunday dinner. She was always up, getting the next dish, serving the next plate, checking in on everybody, and serving the family. And everyone at this eulogy is looking at each other going, what a wonderful woman. Oh my God. And they're crying and they're dabbing their eyes and I'm like this. It was just so obvious that we are celebrating the servitude of a woman who has given her life. Now, this isn't to say we don't want to nurture and we don't want to love, but do you see how pervasive it is? That this is, at her death, in the moment of, her eulogy, what we're remembering are the sacrifices of the woman. I want to know, did she ever daydream? What was her hobby? What did she want to be when she was little? Or what interested her? Did she, what else can you tell me about this woman so that we're not only celebrating her servitude, but the fullness of who she is? And that has always stuck with me. That moment, seeing people dab their eyes, and I'm like, at the back of the church. So I think it's important to have these conversations, and I'm hoping that your listeners are just starting to be curious about what was modeled for them and be curious about what they actually desire in their lives, and not to blindly just go into the next step because they feel like they have to. I think the next generations are waking up. It's exciting to see.
Why do you think some people are so resistant to even ask themselves these questions? Because a lot of people don't know that they've got this shit going on.
Yeah, because we're scared of the answer. I know I was. I was so resistant. And the interesting thing about what happens is if we don't speak the truth, our body will. And so for a lot of us, what comes up is the truth through autoimmune disease. Gabor Mate taught us that, right? The Body Keeps Score is an incredibly powerful book that illustrates what happens when we don't speak the truth, when we repress what is true. I know for myself, it showed up for years as chronic sore throats. The throat chakra, the truth center. I spent much of my life swallowing the truth. I knew that if I actually spoke up, unconsciously, of course, not consciously, if I actually said, I don't want this thing, I don't want to be married, I don't want this life, I'm not happy. If I said those things, I thought the whole world would implode. And so it goes back to conscious communication, really being honest. The first time I said those words, I was in therapy. I couldn't even say it to my best friend. I couldn't even journal it. It came out accidentally in therapy. And the moment I said it, I thought the whole world, I was waiting for the big explosion, and nothing happened. I mean, nothing happened. Nobody died. But it's so frightening to confront the truth. But once you do, your whole world just opens up. It's a scary thing to face the truth, but once you do, your whole life is on the other side of that honesty.
Yeah. There is so much inspiration in that. And I think that if every woman actually gave themselves the opportunity, the permission to step across whatever that boundary line is for them and to be like, you know what, I deserve to know what is on the other side of that because I'm worthy of that. Can you imagine how much we would change the choices we would be making, or like even the wisdom that we would be teaching the younger generation now? Because that's one of the things that I often feel like I just want to sit in a circle with really old women and ask them about all their experience and knowledge and the things that they've learned.
I'm one of the
Bring
old
those
women.
back.
I feel like I'm crossing over that path and I'm like, listen, because here's the thing. I truly believe what's so interesting is that oftentimes we find ourselves in an echo chamber of people who are living the same lie. You know, I was living in a suburban neighborhood where we're all kind of reinforcing the same thing. Like, isn't it so great that we get to like make homemade macaroni, and like we just kept like reinforcing the same lie to one another. And so the way to start to expand that is to really start to get curious about who else can be in your circle. I call it finding models of possibility. So the work that I do, beyond everything that I do as a teacher, as a speaker, as a coach, as a mentor, beyond anything that I do, my most important role, particularly online and to the people that I come in contact with, is to be a model of possibility. I want people to look at me and say, if she can do that, what might I consider for myself? What little crack might open up in the veneer of this mask that I'm wearing, this lie that I'm wearing, that says, maybe I want a little bit of that. And it doesn't mean you have to burn your whole life down. It certainly doesn't mean that. But to start to be honest with yourself, get into spaces where you can be honest with other people. Because if you're living in this very small world where all of your friends and all of your family, they're reinforcing the exact same core values, it's going to be very hard for you to come to truth and to speak your truth, right? So we have to start to expand our social circles.
You had mentioned that you had been an international speaker for a very long time. You have been named Inspirational Woman of the Year, you top 10 women disruptors, so many accolades. Gina, how do you stay grounded in your life amidst all of that?
First of all, I allow myself to fall apart all the time. I used to be very afraid of things falling apart. And what I mean by that is, because I live a very public life, even when I was off the stage, the proverbial stage, I still was on stage at home. I was still on performative in my relationships. I was still performative in my family. I was still pretending all the time. And people who are listening to this, if this is you, you will know it, because I knew it. I was being performative. And so for me, the way that I stay grounded is when I had my first breakdown moment. And that was actually with my therapist. It fell out. I was, even with my therapist, I was like, I'm not so bad. Everything is okay. I'm a little bit sad over here. Not too sad. Don't worry about me. It was such a shift, right? And it took months. And all of a sudden there was one little opening that she just popped the balloon and the truth slipped out. And I was like, oh, I said the thing. And once the truth is out, it's like a dam breaks. And so I fell apart. And I have never told this story publicly. But what happened at the time was my therapist, can't believe I'm telling this story. My therapist said, because I literally had a meltdown. When I told the truth and I said, I don't want this life, I don't want this marriage, I had a meltdown. She said, I can't let you go home. I said, pardon? She said, so there's one of two choices. You're either going to call someone to come and pick you up, or I'm going to call someone to take you somewhere. Because she didn't think I was safe with myself and she didn't think I was going to be okay. And I don't know what she thought, but she said, I can't let you go home. And my husband was at home with the kids. I was like, what do you mean? What's going to happen? And she called my mother. She asked for my mother's number. She called my mother, and my mother came. And the rule was that for 1 week, I was to be fed, to be put to bed, no questions asked, no responsibilities, just to be with myself for 1 week. And I don't know what anybody was told. I don't know how it all went down. All I know is my mother came to pick me up. She brought me to her home. She put me in my childhood bed. And I just remember sleeping for a week. She brought food in, took plates out. I don't even think I showered. I just allowed myself to fall apart completely. And although I do it in different ways now, I still do it all the time. And I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid because self-trust has taught me. And let me define self-trust because we never really defined it. Let me finish that sentence. Self-trust has taught me that I will have my own back no matter what. So a lot of people think self-trust is, I'm going to set a goal and I'm going to push through and I'm going to hit that goal no matter what, right? So maybe it's a diet. Maybe it's a goal that we have to, write a book, or I don't know, whatever goal you might set. And we think, oh, I trust myself to go all the way and hit that goal. But that's not self-trust. Self-trust is the assured reliance that no matter what happens, I will do right by me. No matter what happens, I will do right by me. So in order to do right by me, what that means is, regardless of the outcome, regardless of the consequence, regardless of the perceived failure, regardless of what I think people are going to say or do, I will have my own back. And the way that we start to do that is we have to start to show up for ourselves in these very small, seemingly insignificant ways. If there's something, I'm talking to your listeners now, tugging at your heart, it could seem frivolous to you, or maybe it's something bigger. Maybe you really do want to write a book of poetry. I hear a lot of women like to write or to create. So I always use those as references. Maybe you do want to speak on a stage. Maybe you do want to start a business. Maybe you do want to make some crafts. Maybe you do want to frolic in the field and take pictures, whatever that thing is. But you keep lying to yourself about the thing that you desire. Maybe you don't want to get married and you're engaged. Maybe you do want to get married and you're afraid to date. Maybe I don't know what you want, but whatever that desire is, by not pursuing it, you are breaking your self-trust. By not being honest and declaring it, you're breaking your self-trust. And when we break our self-trust, the body will resist. The body will resist. It will rebel. And so my invitation to you is, if you're going to do some homework, 2 things. One is to find a way to discover your core values. Reach out if you need some help with that. I can help you with that. But number 2 is to ask yourself, what is it that I deeply desire? And what is a way that I can start to move in that direction, even in a small way, to show up for myself in a way that doesn't disrespect and dishonor me? What small thing can I do? Can I get a little pocketbook and start to scratch out some poetry? Like what could I be doing? Could I start to put money in a jar to buy that camera that I've been thinking about, or take some classes? What is the thing? What is the thing? That's how we start to build self-trust, by showing up for ourselves. Self-trust is the reputation that you have with you, knowing that you will do right by you. And that's how I ground myself. I keep showing up for myself, and it's messy. And I want you to know that no matter what my social media may look like, and no matter what my life may look like, my life is very messy. It's messy. It's very messy behind the curtain all the time. And I have what I call my 4 quarters. My 4 quarters are the 4 people in my life that I know will back me when it's messy. They're not there to clean it up. They're not there, but they'll witness me in my messiness, because as women, we tend to suffer in isolation. We really do. Men do as well, but women do differently. We'll say, are you okay? Don't worry about me. I had a hard, but are you okay? And so I have my 4 quarters who allow me to be messy and love me in my messiness. They love me in my imperfection. So that's how I stay grounded. It was a long answer to your question, but that's what it comes back to. I trust that it's okay for me to fall apart. I don't have to get it right all the time. I fail all the time.
I'm so moved by the fact that that's the first time you've shared that story. And I know that so many women listening are very grateful for that, because so many of us have been through what you're talking about in our own way.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Gina, is the thing that makes this work so important for you to do? Because I can really feel it when you're talking about it. Why is this so important for you?
I know the impact of one woman changing the course of her life by 1 degree, just 1 degree. And so what I know for sure is that if you have a friend who says, I can't do this anymore, and she makes a decision, the chances of you looking at your life and being courageous enough to make your decision triples. And so what I know for sure is that we need one another. We need models of possibility. And so if I can be that for someone, yes, that's very exciting, but it also emboldens other people to do it for me. And so we dance in this circle. You know, the amazing thing about the matriarch, right? Like the women rising, is that it's a circle. It's not a hierarchy, right? The way that the patriarchy describes it. There's a leader on top and everybody falls in suit. You know, we are models of possibility for one another. And so I see women doing things and I'm inspired by them, by their fitness journey, by the creativity, by them getting off social media and taking breaks. Like I see other women and I'm inspired. Inspiration is a circle. So what really motivates me is knowing that, you know, everything that I do, people are watching, not just my daughter, not just my son, not just the people online in my community, but everyone's watching. And so if I can spark that something in someone else, I know that the fire is going to go around and come back to me. And this is how we all rise. I see it. I know it. I know it to be true. I see it in my community. It's exciting. It's exciting to see how we all edge one another forward.
If you had the opportunity to have a chat with your younger self, what advice would you give her?
You know what? I've been asked this before, and what I realized is she wouldn't have listened to anything. She was such a stubborn, feisty little thing. You know, I like to think of something really wise, like trust yourself or listen to your gut, because it would have saved me so much trouble had I listened to my intuition. I knew what I knew so many times, and I just overrode it over and over and over again. But the truth is, I believe I needed every one of those experiences. And so I don't want to take any of that away from her as much as I want to save the pain. You know, I look at my own children. My daughter's 19, my son's 21. They're just on the cusp of life. And there's so many things I want to say, like, listen to me, don't do it. But what I know is that they need to build their self-trust muscle. And so I would just say, lean into it all.
I love that.
I want them to have that experience, and I would want my younger self to go through that. She brought me here, so I appreciate her.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because I remember when my mum used to try to tell me anything, I would be like, listen, I just want to go through it myself. I want to learn. Just let me have the experience. I want to learn it myself. And she's like, but why would you if I'm telling you already? I'm like, I
It's like
actually want to do
watching a
this
car
myself.
wreck in slow motion. You can see it happening. You're like, oh.
Yeah, so I totally get that. I'm like, I wouldn't have listened either. I'd have been like,
No.
going anyway.
We all have friends, right? Who, I mean, we give the best advice, don't we? I mean, we can't take our own advice, but we give the best advice. So I have friends, I'm like, girl, what are you doing? What are you doing? You are better than this. You are But what I also recognize is this is her journey. And she
Yeah.
has to come to the knowing that she's done, that, it's time. So, it's a very hard thing to watch when you care about people, but that's how we learn. That's how we learn. That's how we
Yeah.
make decisions. That's how we build our self-trust. Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to know what you are most proud of in your life. Would you say that it is your work? Would you say that it is your children? Would you say that it's your growth? What is it that you're most proud of?
I would say, I'd probably say my tenacity. And all that means is I will, as I said, allow my life to fall apart. Like I've made many decisions, even in the past year, that has humbled me greatly. And I allow the mess to happen. But I always get back up. And this isn't about like, oh, resilience. It's more about I trust that there's something better on the other side. There's something more. I guess I'm an optimist. It's as crazy as that sounds, I'm really proud of the way that, despite everything, I will still get up and say, okay, let's try again. Let's go again.
Oh, and Gina, finally, I would love to know what it is that you love about being a woman.
Oh, there's so many things. How can I pick this one?
I know, right?
I would not choose to be anything. There's so many things. Okay, if I had to distill it down to one, and it would change, my answer would change tomorrow. But right now, what I would say is, so many luscious, delicious things. Right in this moment, what I would say is, I love that as a woman, I am the underdog. There's something very precious about people not expecting anything from you, not thinking you're actually quite capable, actually quite smart enough, actually quite resilient enough. That underdog is such a gift. So if anybody's listening and people have knocked you down, or people have said you can't do it, or if in your life people have not lifted you up and not championed you, I want you to know that you are in such a desirable role, because that underdog, nobody sees them coming. So you can go stealthily along and you can stumble a little and make some mistakes, but nobody sees you coming. And being a woman, the way that I have, spoken, the way that I've taken over the speaker community, the way that I've shown up online, and not to say that there weren't consequences, but I love being a woman that they don't see coming. I love being a force that they don't expect. It's just so delicious.
The way you explained it is.
They don't see it coming. And I just love that.
Yeah. Oh, that just made me feel all kinds of saucy and juicy. I'm like, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Women are outperforming men when it comes to education, when it comes to entrepreneurship, when it comes to running countries. I mean, just the metrics are out there. It's so limitless what we can do. And so they don't see it coming. And this isn't to make a divide between men and women, but it's to say, like, when we are given full opportunity, when we take the opportunity, when we run with the opportunity, when we trust ourselves more, I mean, what does a woman do when she's full? She wants to naturally give. She wants to naturally help someone else. She wants to naturally do something, create something in the world to make it better. And so what's more delicious than that?
Oh, nothing. We expand, baby girl. That's what we do.
We do. We do.
Oh, Gina, this has been such a wonderful conversation. Please let the listeners know where they can find you and how they can work with you.
Oh, you can find me everywhere. I'm Gina Hatzis, Gina Too Much Woman. I'm literally everywhere. What I will say is that something really exciting coming up that's brand spanking new is I have a Too Much Woman quiz that's going to help you, and it's free, but it's going to help you understand the kind of too much woman you are, and you will identify yourself right away. Are you the feeler who's like been told you're too sensitive or too emotional? Are you the disruptor who's come here to really shake things up and tell the truth? Are you the powerhouse who's here to create big things? Are you the visionary who has all of these incredible ideas? Are you the luminary, the witch who has, like, what kind of too much woman are you? And you'll know based on what you've been told your whole life and what your gifts are. And once you take this quiz, what you're able to do is tap truly into your gifts and get clarity about how you are here to serve the world and how you can overcome all of the obstacles in your way. So I'm very excited to offer that to your listeners, and it'll be available very soon. And they'll be the first to touch this quiz. It's brand spanking new. So I'm very excited to offer that to your viewers.
Oh, it's going to be wonderful. I can't wait to take it myself. Oh, if you are interested in connecting with Gina, I will include in the episode description and across socials links on ways you can do that. So if you haven't already, head on over to Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, and follow the Skin I'm In podcast to be the first to know when new episodes drop. Gina, thank you so much for being a guest on the Skin I'm In podcast.
It was so fun. Thank you, everybody, for your time. It was so wonderful.
Sitting with this conversation, I can't help but reflect on the ways I've either tried to shrink myself or been told I was too much, too loud, too sensitive, too dramatic, too much of a risk taker, too opinionated, not stable enough, too ambitious, too cold, too intense, too emotional. I'm not kidding, guys. Say too, fill in the blank, and I've been called everything that you can possibly think of. What I'm learning and what this episode reminded me of is that our too-muchness isn't something to tone down, which is exactly what I did for most of my life. It's actually the exact medicine we're here to bring into the world. The moment we stop apologizing for who we are and start aligning our choices with our core values, life begins to feel less like a performance and more like our truth. This conversation is a reminder as well that living in alignment isn't about perfection. It's about congruence. It's about daring to say, this is who I am, this is what matters to me, and this is how I choose to live my life. I love the way Gina speaks about living her truth and why she's so deeply passionate about using her voice on topics many might overlook or dismiss. Her words are a reminder that what feels small to some can be life-changing for others. So I want to leave you with a question I would love for you to sit with. What truth have you been hiding? And what would it take for you to finally speak it, just as Gina did in the story she shared with us today? I'd love for you to share your truth with the community in the comments below. Your words might be the permission someone else needs to free themselves today. With gratitude and grace, have a wonderful day.